So I've been to a lot of these meetings now, as I know many of you have too, and I always end up thinking the same thing. How the hell is our government allowing this to happen? And of course I know the answer, as you do too. When you follow the money and you trace the big donations that have been made by the construction companies and the road companies and the developers over many years to the Liberal Party, to Labor, to the Nationals, you know why they do support WestConnex. And there are many reasons I think this is unforgivable. But for me, one of the primary ones has always been the impact that WestConnex is having on communities all across the route. How people are suffering as I speak, and how many more will suffer if this project rolls on. I've used that word suffering very deliberately, because after having residents come to me for years telling me about what WestConnex is putting them through, I've come to believe there really is no other word. And it's suffering on such a scale, affecting thousands of people, that there's no way I can run through it all in just a few minutes. All I can do is touch on some of the worst of what WestConnex is doing to people right now. People like my friend Kate in Beverly Hills, who's been forced to keep working through months of aggressive cancer treatment. She's had to do this because ever since WestConnex started construction works across the road from her house, her home has started splitting apart, with cracks opening up that are so wide you can literally stick books into them. It's damage that will cost up to $250,000 to repair, but so far WestConnex contractors are denying all liability. So Kate works through her cancer to save her home. And she's not the only one whose home has started cracking. Residents in Beverly Hills and Haberfield are starting to report the same issues and getting the same horrific runaround from WestConnex. Then there's St Peters, where our government wants to build that enormous interchange, complete with unfiltered pollution stacks next to hundreds of homes and businesses and schools. As many of you know, the site of this interchange is the old Alexandria landfill, a toxic dumping ground for asbestos and chemicals and full of decades of putrefied waste. So you'd think it'd make sense for our government to clean this up before they start work there, right? But that isn't the WestConnex way. Instead, residents as far away as Tempe and Mascot and Newtown have been subjected to months of the most putrid chemical stench that's been escaping from the site as WestConnex contractors dig it up. I could tell you many horrific stories about how people's health and well-being has been affected by this. But one of the ones that I personally found most distressing came from a woman in St Peters who messaged the WestConnex Action Group one night in distress. She'd shut all her doors and all her windows and was breathing through her blankets, but her eyes were still burning and she was coughing and nauseous. She contacted us because she was desperate to find out who she could get in touch with to make the stench stop. But it was 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and there was nothing the government was willing to do. St Peters residents will also tell you about how they're constantly cleaning their homes of thick dust thanks to the construction works, dust that they and their kids are now breathing on a daily basis, and of being subjected to relentless construction noise day and night. This is projected to go on for years. In suburbs like Arncliffe, Haberfield and Homebush, it's the same story. Haberfield, of course, is also the suburb that has had decades of its heritage wiped out for WestConnex, with over 50 historically significant and irreplaceable homes bulldozed for this toxic tollway. The former owners of these homes are among the hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have lost their properties, and in some cases their livelihoods, to WestConnex. And of this I have intimate knowledge. My family and I had lived in our St Peters home for less than 2 months when we were told it would be forcibly acquired and destroyed for WestConnex. And like so many people have been put through this horrific process, we were forced to fight for years for fair compensation. Even now, it's a fight that's not over. In fact, we just found out this week that the government only feels like paying around 80% of our legal costs. I guess with WestConnex's budget blowing out by the day, they need every cent they can get. Yet we're still among the lucky ones because we could take the government to court. Hundreds of other residents have not been able to, and they're the ones who've been forced to accept disastrous offers for their homes and businesses because the cost of taking legal action, financial, psychological and emotional, which is too high. There are so many other impacts I haven't had time to touch on tonight, but I hope this gives you an insight into why it is unforgivable that our government is allowing this to happen. I'm so glad that so many of you are here tonight to demand that they fix WestConnex. I share that determination, and I will continue to stand with you in the fight to stop WestConnex. Thank you.